This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning. Welcome to WinCAMS webinar number 2, the deuce. We're going to talk about reports today, and you should know that this is being recorded with intent to put it on YouTube and on our website for you to watch later if you're having trouble sleeping. Or if you want a refresher, or if there are people in your organization that were not able to make it today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through reporting, and you are welcome to type questions into the chat, and I'll try to get to them in a timely fashion. Excuse me. And you should be able to see my screen that says WinCAMS webinar series number 2 using WinCAMS reports, and hopefully you can see my face and beautiful Mount Bachelor, Oregon behind me, my second favorite ski area. So here we go. If you're having any technical difficulties, you can throw it into the chat, or if I'm not coming through clearly or something like that, we'll do our best. Okay, so reporting. So WinCAMS has a lot of reports, and they have a lot of features, and sometimes it's a little bit daunting to sort of where to start. But I've kind of laid out a sort of step-by-step of what you're going to think about when you want to do reports. So first of all, here's WinCAMS here, and the reports are all contained. Every report you have is contained in this reports button right here. Okay. Sorry. So this reports button drops down the modules that you have at your site. Sorry. And then in each module, all the reports that are available. Okay. You can also get to these reports from the CAMS button and then go into the module, and then there's a reports section of every module. Okay. So the first thing that you want to be able to do, or you want to start with doing, hold on, I've got people attempting to log in. The first thing you want to do is think about what kind of a report do you want. Okay, so looking at my agenda here, which tables and screens do you want to report on? Okay, so there are, I mean, generally, if you want to report on projects, then you might go to the project module, right? And you'll report on projects. Now, what the biggest thing you want to think about is what I call the posting curtain. Okay, so are you going to be reporting on records that have been entered and not yet posted, or are you going to be reporting on records that have been posted? So if I go to any of these project reports, I'm basically assuming that I'm reporting on reporting on data that has already been entered in time cards, invoices, inventory, equipment usage, whatever, journals, and then posted against these ledgers. So if I want to see a vehicle report and I want audited posted data, then I can go into the vehicle area of WinCAMS. Okay, or if I want specific information about the vehicles, right? Now, if I want a report on the time cards that have recently been entered, and I might want a combination of posted and unposted data, or if I want only unposted data, then I need to go to the module where that data is entered. Okay, so if I want to see time cards that were entered yesterday or 5 minutes ago or this month, or I'm auditing for preparation for posting, then I want to do it in the applied charges module. Now, there is some overlap there, right? If I want to, I can still run a report from the applied charges module sorted by or selected on projects, right? That's okay. And I can go to the project module and we'll talk about a cost source report that actually digs back in and gives me very detailed information from the source documents. Okay. One more link there. Okay. So, so that's the first thing I want to do is choose my report. Now, another thing when you're thinking about reports is sort of understanding our naming convention. We try to make them some sort of sensible name, but sometimes it's not always clear. Obviously, this is about time in and time out, but it's not always clear what an employee anniversary review is. Sometimes they're very clearly named employees without time cards. However, that's much more than an employees without time cards report. It's also can check for employees that whose hours don't match up to the expected number of hours in that period or that week, etc. But what you'll see in a lot of the modules is you'll see a pattern, right? Okay, if I go to projects, I see a listing report. A listing report generally means that it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a listing. It generally doesn't have a lot of cost totals. It's not changing day to day as far as you post charges to that thing. And it's a listing of those things. So vendor listing, activities listing, employee listing, projects listing, vehicle listing, right? And throughout this webinar and throughout your interaction with WinCAMS, what I really want you to not be afraid to do is just go into a report and say, oh, it's a project listing report. I don't really hardly even know how to use reports. I can hit the go button. This is the go button. Okay, just hit the go button. Nothing bad's going to happen. The worst thing that'll happen is you'll realize that you're set to print your reports directly to the printer, and you just wasted 9 pages of paper. And I can show you how to turn that off and print to a preview screen. And we'll get to that soon. So I just hit the go button, then I magnify. When I hit the go button, my report preview pops up and I magnify my report, and then I kind of have a sense, oh, okay, this is exactly what it sounds like, a project listing report. So there's project numbers, descriptions, project types, the status of the project, start dates and end dates, things like that, okay? So once you have that, then you can say, okay, I kind of like this report, but I need a little bit more data, or I need to exclude inactive projects, et cetera. And we're going to talk about all that. So after the listing report, when you go through a module, what you're going to see is generally a ledger report. This is more of a cost-oriented report that shows just very summarized costs, and it has lots more than cost, but it's very summarized. So again, I'm not afraid to just hit the go button, see what happens. This one may take a little bit longer, and it may show me more data. I don't know what it's doing now. May take a lot longer. All right, so if I get into a situation where I don't really know what I'm getting into, and I don't really know if I even want this report, I should be able to hit the cancel button up here, and as soon as it comes up for air, and it will cancel my report. Now, one confusing thing, you notice that your cursor, your mouse, is pointed to the upper left, right? It's sort of, if you think of it as an icon, it's pointed to the upper left. So if I've seen this, it sounds silly, but I've seen many users struggle with this. If your cursor is the SQL hourglass, you need to put the upper left corner of the SQL hourglass onto that button. All right. So and it should kind of lift up. See how it bevels right there when I touch it. So, but all of our reports should cancel. And if there's a delay in canceling, it's because we haven't come up for air and we're down in the database and we haven't come up for air to update the counts. So I'm going to quickly pick a few projects just so that I can narrow this down. Here, So I'm gonna, and we'll talk about what this means, but I'm gonna pick this project and some of these projects, okay? And we'll talk about what I'm doing there in a second. But mostly what I'm still wanting to discuss is, I don't know what there we go. Okay, is sort of looking at a report and figuring out, am I interested in this report? Okay, what's a project ledger report? Okay, I see it's got a project number and name, and then it says year-to-date appropriations, prior year balance, year-to-date expenditures, percent of the budget that's been expended, etc. So then I get a sense of the report, and I get a sense of how I would make the report more what I actually want, okay? The next on, as we kind of dig deeper into the report options here, is that we're going to normally go into an expenditure summary / detail. So this is getting more detailed. It's still not as detailed as, say, Joe worked 1 hour on Wednesday for $25 on this, but it's going to be, here's a labor charge that got posted to this project, here's an invoice charge that got posted to this project, sometimes rolled up, sometimes one charge per source document, but it's going to have the individual, like how did we get to, so when we see this year-to-date expenditures for the Lynn Pit of $454, how did we get there? Where did it come from? What makes up that $454? What was posted to make up that $454? Okay, and then we start getting into lots of other more detailed reports. And actually, there's one more level of detail that's called a cost source report in many of our modules, and that is basically saying, okay, I found this labor charge, say $400 labor charge. Now I'm going to dig back into these source time cards, and I'm going to show you very detailed information about that labor. Now, that still is only posted charges, okay? That is only going to be posted charges. I cannot go into a project. See if this is true. Yeah, I can't really go into a project report and then show unposted time cards or invoices that reference that project, right? There are some things that have some pending totals that you can show. That would be unposted information. But if I'm saying, well, I want to see the up to today or up to all the entry we have for this project, then I'm going to want to go into the source documents, right? So I'm going to go into applied charges and run a report out of time cards, for instance, and select on those projects. Okay, so that's choosing reports. Which tables and screens do you want to report on? And if you're not sure and you can shoot us an email, support@cascadegovsoftware.com, or give us a call and ask us. I'd like a report, or sometimes people show us a report from another system, or that maybe somebody that they found in a file cabinet and they want to know how to recreate that report. We're happy to help, or get something close. Okay, so next we're going to talk about customizing your report. Okay, so the CAMS report engine is frankly so powerful it can be daunting at times, okay? But I'm going to try to guide you through it so that you can compartmentalize what you're after and not oh, I forgot an important piece here. And not get bogged down in the details that aren't important, and then get your report the way you want, and then save it for the future so that you don't have to think about this all the time. Okay, so customizing your report. There are 4 ways we customize the report generally. The first is selection criteria and filtering. Which data do you want to select? Okay. Second is control breaks and sorting. In what order do I want to see the data? How do I want the subtotals to behave, etc. The third is optional columns. What details about the data do I want to see? And then the fourth is report specific options. So let's go through those one by one. Selection criteria and filtering. Okay, so if I go to, let's just go to a simple report. In the direct charges, I'm going to go to vendor listing. Okay. So I go into the vendor listing. First thing I do, if I have no idea what this report does, other than that it lists vendors, I presume, is I hit the go button. Okay. And it counts up. It's not going to take very long. Okay, it looks like it's counting up to 2,000, and we'll see what it shows. Now, incidentally, if your go button ends up at the printer, that's bad. So you're going to use this white paper right here, report setup, okay? And you go in there, and if you, in your report output section, okay, you can say always preview reports before printing. It's also annoying if you have it set to ask me each time, because I don't know. I always want to preview the reports before I print them, just in case I don't get what I want. Let's not waste paper. And we'll talk a little bit about some other things on here in a second, okay? So the first thing I do is I run my report. I got 48 pages, 2,000 vendors, and I see what I've got here. Oh, vendor 1,000 is Forsberg and McLaughlin. They're at Orange Grove Avenue in North Highlands, California. Here's their phone number, their fax. And I noticed some things here that I might have lots and lots of vendors that I don't really want. Okay, so the first thing we talk about is filtering. We call it selection criteria. Every report has a number of fields that you can select on. If you need more fields, let us know. If it's for the most part, we just add those without a change order, and people email us fairly regularly and they say, hey, could you let me select on the vendor state? Okay, nobody's ever asked me that before, but now I have ways of selecting on vendor state in searching, which is a topic for a different webinar. But so I might say I want, I'm going to select on vendor. So once you select on a field, once you select a field here, then you've got include and exclude here. Okay, and you can use those both or one or the other. And you can see here it says list ranges and or individual items. So if I want to just type them in, I want vendor number 1, 2, 3. That's vendors 1, 2, and 3. Or I want vendor 1, and then the tilde is in the upper left of your keyboard, 1 through 200. Okay. Now I can do the same thing in the exclude. I can say I want 1 through 200, but I want to exclude 50 through 75. So now I should get 1 through 49 and 76, or technically 75 something, 750 maybe, or 75A through 200. Okay. Now, if I don't want to type that stuff, I don't have to. I can use my lookups, and you'll notice that a normal lookup in WinCAMS, if you find something in your lookup, you just double click it or hit OK, and it puts the value in your cell. Say you're entering time cards or something like that, and you want to select an activity. If you find well, in this case, you're entering an invoice. If you find a vendor in a normal lookup in WinCAMS, then you just select the thing and it puts it into your cell. You'll notice here that when you're in a report and you are using the lookup, we have a multi-select section here. And what this does is it knows that you may want to select more than one thing. So if I want a report on this one, I can double click there, it'll put it there. I can double click this one, and it's just going to keep building my list for me. Okay. Or I can use these buttons. I can single click one of these, say add item, and then single click add item. Then I can go further down. I can go into the R's. No, that's not a good one. Let's go into the 9s, and I can say 9006, and then I can say begin range. It puts in the tilde for me, and I want to go through 9116 end range. And then when I say OK, it puts it in here for me. So I said 4129.8, 4163, and 9006 through 9116. Okay. So then I say add, and that puts it up into my selection criteria. And you'll notice that vendor is now gone from my selection criteria. If I want to pick more vendors, I can hit edit while this is highlighted, and I can start editing it. okay? So if I do that and I hit my go button, remember I got 48 pages before, now I get 1 page, because the selection criteria that I said was I wanted 4129-8, also 4163, also 9006 through 9116. So look at that, that's exactly what I got. The same things, that's what I got. Okay. Now, when I'm doing selection criteria, all of these criteria have to be true, right? So if I was looking at, let's go back to our project listing report. Okay. If I was, now you see this one has a lot more things to select on, but if I was selecting on projects that are connected to roads, right? And I also want category, let's say I don't know what their categories are. Let's find out what their categories might be. So right click, I'm going to expand all. So I want projects that are connected to road, to a road, and are also in the category road engineering project, right? So I would do, so then both those things have to be true, right? So I'm saying, so I would say, okay, I want road engineering projects, double click that, say okay. So now it says project category, sorry, it says project category RE. I add it, and then I also want the project to be connected to a road. Okay. Now I don't care which, maybe I care which road, that's fine, but maybe I don't care which road. So if I don't care which road, then I can use a trick that also works in our search, and I can highlight road, right? So this is the road, this is saying I'm in a project listing report, I want to list projects that reference a road, right? That is in this range or whatever I'm saying here. So I can put my cursor there, and if I don't care what road, I just want to make sure it has a road, I can say add. I'm sorry. If I want to make sure it has a road, I want to say exclude, okay? And then I can say add. And you'll notice that it says exclude none. So what that's saying is show me project category RE, and also where the project references a road or references any road number, because I want to exclude where the project is none. I'm sorry, where the road is none, okay? And apparently I don't have any, because this data set they may not use that RE, they may not reference the roads directly on their project, they may not know about that feature. That's all fine. Because remember, I'm not looking for time cards that reference this road and project. I'm looking at the project listing, so it's looking at the project ledger and saying, is this project permanently tied to a road? Okay, so I can also use the exclude in the the none feature in the include, right? So I could say include road engineering projects where the road tied to the project is blank. Okay, so there we go. They have 8 projects that are listed as road engineering category, but have no road attached to them. That's not wrong. That's up to this client and this site. So they have so maybe now I don't know why the Ager Road rehab project is not going to be tied to Ager Road. Maybe Ager Road is broken into pieces, and so they want to specify on their time cards which pieces they are actually going to reference, or maybe they just made a mistake. But if you tie that project to that road, then all the costs will flow through to the road. So I would do that. Okay. So let's see here. So the selection criteria is my filter. So we went from 48 pages with 2,000 vendors down to 17 vendors on a single page based on my selection criteria. So that's the first thing we want to think about. We've got a question here. So Andriana said I noticed the selection criteria has to be in a certain order in order to pull up the report. That is not correct. The selection criteria does not need to be in a certain order. You cannot overlap your selection criteria. It will tell you not to do that. If I say I want A through F and C through K, that we don't like that. We don't want to overlap. But I can do what I said, A through F and exclude C. That's okay. I can do that. And if I'm using multiple selection criteria, like I was in my project listing report, there should be no difference if I choose road none and project category include RE second. So I'll show you that. If I delete the project category, so now I'm saying show me any project that has road none. And remember, I had 8 projects on one page. So now I'm going to choose project category RE again. So now they're in the reverse order. I get the same 8 projects on one page. Should be no difference. But if you found some bug or some example of that, feel free to email it to us. Brenda asks, how do you change where the lookup is pointing to? Great question. We've made some really nice changes. One of our senior developers, Chris, has worked really hard in the last year or so. He made some great changes to the reporting and also to the lookups. So our lookups now, you used to double click on the where you're anything with a lookup, and it would show you the lookup options. You now don't have to do that. So if I say roads, right? So now I'm looking up for roads. If I hit the lookup, and then so it says roads by key with mileposts, right? So it's showing me by road number with the milepost range that each of these road segments, if they're entered, has. Okay, I can right click in the lookup now, and we have a bunch more options. This isn't really a lookups webinar, but one of my favorites is open the source program. If you can't find the road you want, well, we can open the road master for you right away, right? So you don't have to go to the menus and brings up your road master. If it was already up, it wouldn't even have to open. It would just pop up. But here we are. Now we're at our road master. Okay. And to your point, Brenda, if you right click here, you can, if there are other lookups available, we show you. So here's switch to the, I don't want my road lookup to be in order by road number. I want it to be in order by description with mileposts or with the crossroads. So I'm going to choose with the crossroads. It closes that one and it brings it up. So now you can see that it's Abrams Lake Road from North Old Stage Road to the county line. Okay, so any lookup that has multiple options, and most of our major lookups have multiple options. So if I'm doing like a project lookup, I'm currently set to projects by key. Key means the project number. So it's in order by project number, and apparently this is broken down by fund because this particular client's projects are fund and then project number. But if I want to see if there's other ones, I right click and I've got projects by facility, projects by description, projects active and inactive, and projects by category, right? So if I go to projects by category, so here's the group of projects that have no project category. Here's the ones that are bridge engineering, etc. And actually, to your specific question, Brenda, yeah. So you might have to send me an email about that location question and make sure that we've got you lined up to the right locations. Okay. So that's selection criteria. That's our first. That is our first item we want to talk about in our customizing our report. Okay. So if I go back to my project listing, let's say I want RE type projects. There are none apparently. Oh, there's none with, so this is a pretty, our report engine doesn't stop you from making a kind of a silly report, right? I asked for a project listing where the project number is none. So that makes no sense. Every project has a number. If you somehow got a project in there with no number, that's a mistake and it should be deleted. So that makes no sense, but that's why I got an empty report. If you get empty report on a project, that's the first place I would look, is your selection criteria. And I would start backing off your selection criteria, right? So I see people, they say they have like 4 or 5 selection criteria, and I'm looking at dates, and then I'm looking at this employee, and then I'm looking at this project, and I don't know why I'm getting nothing, right? So what my first thing is, start dropping selection criteria until you get something, and then you'll know that that when you put that selection criteria back, it goes back to nothing, and then it'll be usually very obvious. So sometimes it's like they mistyped the date, or they I don't know, they forgot it was a holiday, or they didn't use the lookup for the employee number, so they transpose numbers in the employee number. So they're like, I know employee 1234 has a has a time card for this week, but I'm not getting anything. Well, it's because you put in 1243. Okay, and that is illuminated when you take something away. So I take away, I highlight project include none, which is nonsense, and I take it away, and then I run my report, and now I'm saying show me all the RE projects. Okay. So the next thing on our list is control breaks and sorting. In what order do I want to see my data? Okay. So I've got my RE projects. I'm actually going to try a different, I'd like to get more projects here. So how about if I do storm damage projects and building and grounds maintenance projects and that and snow removal. There we go. Let's just see what I get here. Okay, so I get a nice list of 50 projects. This is good. Okay, so now I say, okay, that's great. What order are they in? Well, they're clearly in order by the project number. Okay, so maybe I don't want them in order by the project number. Maybe I want them in order by something else. So that's control breaks. Control breaks controls your sort order and your subtotaling. Okay, so control breaks. If control breaks, we implemented this first in 2008, and I was so worried that it was going to be scary and complicated for people that we left in all these standard. You'll see in most of our reports, all of our reports, there are some standard sort orders, right? So the standard here is project, and these are linked to the control breaks. So when I see project, then over there, then I've got project over here. If I make it project description over here, then my control breaks will be project description. And in fact, it actually made it project description and then project number after that, right? But I can also manipulate it here, and I have a lot more choices here, okay? So I can say, I can roll up I can remove this. I'm right clicking here. I can remove it and say, I just want it by description, run my report again. Now I get the same 50 projects, right? And the project number is jumping around potentially, but because they're going by description. So Ager, Big, Butterfly, California, Cecilville, City, etc. So the control breaks are linked up with these options here. Okay, so if I go to another report, like the vendor listing, over here I've got vendor listing by vendor number, vendor listing by vendor name, vendor listing by vendor category. Or I could do the same thing in the control breaks. Okay. Now, in a listing report, you'll notice the format of the listing report is literally a listing. So there's not generally subtotals in a listing report because there's no numbers in a listing report generally. There sometimes are a few, but generally we don't drill in and drill out. If we go back to our project ledger report, you'll see here that what we have in the control breaks is fund and then project number, fund, and then project number, and then we subtotal on each of these, right? And then we have, here's the 2103, then 1, 2, 3 project numbers, and then a subtotal for the fund, right? Okay, so why does it do that? Because in the control breaks, it shows right just like that, right? Fund and then project number. And if I wanted the project category above them, I can double click project category. It puts it in below that, and I can either drag, or we have a new feature with arrows, and I can move it up, because the dragging was annoying, frankly. Okay, so now it says I want to put the project category in as a break or a sort order above the project. So now I can rerun the report. So now you can see I've got this category, Bridge Engineering Projects, BE, and then I've got my fund, Bridge Preventative Maintenance, and then I've got the projects that fit. And remember, the projects that fit are because I picked a whole bunch of projects, right? So 1 second here. So on our control breaks, it's really important to think about, because you can make some silly control breaks, right? So if, for instance, if I'm running a time card report or let's say I'm running an invoice report, how about that? An invoice report, and I run it by, when you drill in, you want to drill in from larger things to smaller things, right? So if I go to the control breaks in my invoice report, right, then let's say I've got project category and I've got project, right? So I want my invoice by project. And then I also want project category, right? Well, if I do project category underneath project, and I'm going to roll that one up. If I do project category underneath project, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's like doing day and then month, right? Because every date is only in 1 month, period, right? So today is July 21st, so it would say July 21st, and then the month would be July. And then, so that's just like a wasted drill. Now it's very interesting to say July and then July 1st, and then a subtotal for July 1st, and then July 2nd, et cetera, et cetera. And then when we get to the end of our July data, then a subtotal for July. That's very interesting. But the reverse is just a waste. So I see sometimes people, so like division and then employee is a wonderful report. Employee and then division, not so great, because unless your employees move around to different divisions, that's fine. But if your employees are only one division, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so project, every project is in a single category. So project category and then project makes perfect sense. Project and then project category, it's not, it's just a wasted row in my report, right? Okay, so and you'll also notice that there's 2 sections of this here. We've got report breaks and subtotals, and then a lower section called sort detail records within breaks, right? So everything you put into this report breaks and subtotals area is going to not only go in that order, but it's also going to subtotal on that. It's going to create a subtotal every time that thing changes. And if you don't want it to subtotal when that thing changes, but you want it to come out in that order, right? So I could say, okay, I don't want, I want it by project category, but I don't want a subtotal for each project. So I can move the project number down within the breaks, right? So it's saying I want things to be in order by project, but I don't want them to subtotal every time. Okay. So, and if you want to see what this looks like, you can hit View Sample Report. Okay. So it shows you, okay, we're sorting by project category, and then we're showing some data, and then we have a project category subtotal. If I move the project up into the report breaks and I say View Sample Report, then we go project category, we drill into project fund, then we drill into project number, then we have some data, then we start drilling back out with our subtotals. Okay. Another important thing about control breaks is you'll notice this required here. Required means there are two ways to think about reports. If I sort on something, does that mean I want that thing to have a value every time? Required means yes, I want that thing to have a value. So I only want reports, or I only want invoices that have a project with a project category. So that automatically excludes invoices that don't have a project, right? So if I'm running my vendor listing report and I say I want to sort by vendor category and it's required, if you don't use vendor categories, okay, only 17, or actually 17 of these vendors, oh, apparently they don't have a vendor category. Interesting. Well, so vendor number, everything has a vendor number, so required doesn't make a difference. But if you want to turn that off, you can say not required, and then we will have a section of the report that says, you know, with no value. So let's do something that might have no value nicely. Let's try, what happened to, oh, there we go, sorry. So if I go to my project ledger report, so project category is required currently, okay? And I come up with these 3 projects that have a category. If I make my project category not required, I ended up with 5 projects. And you can see here what the difference is, right? There's my same bridge engineering project, or 2 of them, bridge Road 7920 and Road 7530. And then here's my aggregate pits projects. And then there were 2 projects that fit my selection criteria, but did not have a project category. So they got put into a section that says none. Okay, and so whether I want that, am I reporting? If I'm reporting on projects by project category, do I want projects that have no project category? I don't know. It's up to you. So that's right-clicking on the project category or on the control break and turning on or off required. And there is a there's a checkbox here that says the breaks are required by default. So if I uncheck that box and I add another break, then it will throw it in there as not required. Okay. What else can you do in the right-click options? You can remove the item from the breaks. You can create a page break, right? So if I put a page break there, you'll see a little page break symbol. I run my report. And now you'll see, if I printed this out, there's my cover page, but it's doing a page break every time, because I told it to break on the project category. So it's doing a page break every time the project category changes. So there's my BE subtotal, and then we do a new page, and there's my pit subtotal. Then we do a new page, and I get a page for my none projects. Okay, my no project category projects. That's a really common one if you're doing a billing report, or you want to show other departments what cars they've used, or you want to show maybe you're doing projects for your local city or for a neighboring county or something like that. So you don't have to run, if you find yourself running 10 reports, you know, 1 for each client or 1 for each agency or 1 for each division, you can run them all strung together and just throw a page break on your control break, and you can run 1 report, and then you just become a collator. Okay. You can make it descending, so you want it to go in reverse order. You can say, I want, when you break, I want to show a count. Okay, and that puts the little pound symbol there. So now I'm saying new page, and the project category is not required, and I want to show a count. So now at my subtotal line, I get 2 records listed there. This one has 1 record. Okay, so that's where I can do a count. Okay, so I think that's everything for control breaks. Better speed up. Optional columns. Okay, So now I've got this report. It's in order by description, which I maybe like. I've got so I'm fine with that. And I've selected on my project categories that I want. Let's say now I look at my report and I say, well, I don't really need the start and end date. Or if you have a column that's just blank that you're not filling in, well, then I don't really need that. All these are active, or I don't manage my projects with active or inactive. So maybe I want to get rid of those, or maybe I want to see what other columns I could put on the report, right? So I'm thinking about what details about the data do I want to see, okay? So then that's this button here, choose columns, okay? Here are the available columns on the left. Here are the columns, the selected columns on the right, okay? So if I want to add a column, I can just double click it or highlight it and move it into, so I'm going to add to selected columns the bridge and the second description, okay? Now, if I do that, okay, if I just do that, it puts bridge and description 2 at the end of the report. Of course, the bottom is the far right, and then the top is the far left. And I say okay, then I can run the report. Now I can completely rerun the report, or this button here is an interesting one that says reprint the report without recollecting. And this is especially useful when you've chosen new columns, okay? It's not gonna work if you choose different selection criteria or different control breaks. We have to go through the report and gather the different data, right? But we've got all this, the columns that we need already. So if you have a report that took 30 seconds or 3 minutes to run, then I can hit reprint report and it's much faster. No, it's so I truncate. I had my report was too wide, but so there's my bridge, right? So I'm gonna get rid of some columns. I'm gonna get rid of start date and end date and status and project type. And then, so it's just doing the writing. It's saying use what you already had in your sort table and show me with these columns, right? So apparently we don't use description 2 very much. Okay. And if I want to, so if I want to move columns around, if I want to go back to the defaults, right? This is the way we deliver. This is what we think is a decent project listing report. You can always go back to your defaults, right? And if I want to move project type after project division, that's fine. Okay. So that's choosing my columns. If you need more columns, a column that you don't see. Oh, and by the way, the blue ones are numbers. I don't know why we turned them blue, but they're dollar amounts. If you need a column that you see on the screen that you don't see in the columns, just shoot us an email. If you need a control break that you don't see or you see on the screen or that makes sense to you that you don't see in here, let us know, or a selection criteria, that's fine. Okay, so now we've done filtering with selection criteria, sorting with control breaks, and optional columns here. Okay, and we also learned about reprinting the report. And you can always try to reprint the report, by the way. If we will not let you. If you change your control breaks, if you add something like that and you try to reprint the report, it will say I'm unable to reprint because the sort table is not in the right order. So then it'll prompt you to just start over and okay, now I get empty report. Why? Because I added department and I said required, and that department field must not have a value in this data set. So if I say not required, I get the same 50 projects again. What a treat. And you'll notice that now I'm drilling in with this nonsense row here. Okay. There's a question in the control breaks. If you hide subtotals, can it still show a grand total? I believe so. Let's see, something with a grand total. Okay, so Stephanie asked, so there's subtotals here and there's a grand total. Let's try this. If we say hide subtotals, well, first let's make sure this is the right report. Okay, so we've got subtotals and a grand total of $681,000 for 5 records. So if I go to the control breaks and say hide subtotals, what happens? So it does not, it hides the grand total. And what's interesting is in this report, everything is a subtotal, right? So there's not really, there's no dollar amounts. So I don't think this is a good one to try that with. What I could do is potentially, let's see what happens if we take this down and this down. So now I have no breaks and only sorting detailed records within breaks. So that's kind of interesting. I'm going to see what happens there. And you'll notice that I'm pretty flippant about just running the report, and I encourage you to be the same. Well, that didn't work at all. So it's really, this one is really relying on these breaks for when it's going to print. But I encourage people, don't be afraid to hit that button. Nothing bad will happen unless you have it set to printer to a printer. Nothing bad's going to happen. Okay. So I'll make a note of that, Stephanie, and see if we can separate out the grand total from the subtotals when we hide them. Okay, so the last thing on our customizing our report are the report specific options. Okay, so this just means on the report type tab, we have lots of reports have report specific options. Okay, checkboxes. How do I want to describe the project? These are just things that people have asked us for, things like that. This one is a confusing one. You get a lot of reports that say show period ending date. This does not mean, if I put a date in here, like if, let's say I backdate this to 03/01/20, right? And then let's make sure, okay, my report's back in action. And I go run the report. Some people think, okay, now I'm getting a project ledger report as of 03/01/20, right? And then they're disappointed when they see the same 681,000 here, you know? And I say, no, that's not what that means. What that's really for is a period ending date, meaning put that period ending date on my report right there so that I have a sense of, even though the report was run at 10:56 on the 21st of July, this is kind of to show any person looking at this report a year from now or next month that the data we have in CAMS is posted through March 1st. That's really what it means. If I want to actually see things through March 1st, then I need to be, well, I may not be able to, yeah, I probably can't do it through this, through a project ledger report. So I might say, go into a project expenditure summary detail and then start selecting on dates, right? So I might say, if you're January to December fiscal year, I might say January through March, or if I might start in July, right? So then my selection criteria might include source dates, right? Something like that. And so that then I could actually get what are the expenditures that have been posted to these projects through March, but that's not what period ending date means. So you can see that each report has different checkboxes that you may or may not want to use. Some of our reports are multi-year reports, and so then you can, it makes it dig into prior years for some of the data, right? And again, you know, think about how the engine works. The engine is stupid. If you put if you check 2019 and then select January through March of 2020, you're just wasting your time, right? And there's no reason to make it go open up 2019 when it's definitely not going to hit anything there, right? So these, if you're not clear on what some of these mean, you can try them out, or you can send us an email and see what happened, or ask us what each checkbox means, and we'll let you know. Okay, so each one has different things on it. Vendor listing report has almost none except for include list of work interests. Okay, all right, so that's kind of how you customize your report. So now when you've printed a report, Like, let's say I like this report. I actually don't like this report. I want to get rid of the department here. But I like this report that I like what it shows me, right? It's sorted by project, whatever, I don't know. It doesn't matter why I like it. It's my favorite report. Okay, so once I like it in the screen here, I have a few options. I can print it to the printer right there, and it will bring up my printer options. You probably have a lot more options than I do, especially if you're a larger agency. And you may have, so I don't actually have a PDF writer, but if I wanted to go, you probably do have a PDF writer, QPDF or Adobe Writer. I can go to Microsoft, so if I tell it to go to Microsoft XPS, that's a lot like PDF. And then if I say that, then it will, then when I hit, it should ask me for where to save it, right? So I say test. And now CAMS thinks that it wrote the report to the printer, but it doesn't know the difference. So now I should be, oops, sorry. So now if this were a PDF or I'm an XPS, there it is. So now I've got it in a PDF format or XPS format. What a lot of people want to do is push it to Excel. Here's your Excel button. If I click that, it will open Excel. Of course, you have to have Excel, and it will push the data into Excel. Okay. Now note that this is a new feature that we show the cover page at the top of the Excel sheet, right? Okay. And so this is the same data. Now, also note that this is actual data. There's not formulas in here. So if you have a subtotal in your Excel, it's not a subtotal in Excel. It's just it's the number we threw in there. Okay. And then you can manipulate it, pivot it, put in formulas, whatever you want to do. Okay. And we have some new features in the Excel area as well that I'm going to talk about in a second. So that's your output options. You can also remember when we go into our options here, there's not very many that you need to play with here. Margins, I wouldn't worry about them, but you can control them there. Font size, this is the font we're asking for, is a size 10, and then we will ask the printer if it fits based on our font, based on the page that's in the printer and what we can go down to, right? And if you want to test with that, you can go to your optional columns and you can say check width. So it says selected columns will fit on the report using font size 10. If I add a bunch more columns and I check width, oh, hold on. It's because I'm printing to XPS, so XPS can handle anything. But if I print to my my LaserJet, then I go into here and I say check width. Oh, still fits on size 10. And it still fits on size 10. My printer is telling it. I've never seen it do that before. Normally what it does is, what it should do is say, okay, I'm gonna keep moving your font size down because you put so many darn columns on there, right? And I can't fit them, so I will keep bumping down to your minimum, okay? And then there's some tiling options, rarely used, but we can tile, we can do page 1A, 1B, 1C, okay? Whether you want this cover page here is a checkbox. Print cover page for empty reports. Some people want to have evidence, like literal paper evidence that they printed a report. So we have people that have to print a report every week for the sick leave that was taken, or the vacation that was taken, or the work that was the overtime. And maybe there's a week where there was no overtime or no sick leave or no vacation, and so they want to print something. So you can say print cover page for empty reports, and it will show you this cover page and then say that there was an empty report. Okay. Also in this print setup, if I pick a different printer, so if I pick my color printer and then I say okay, and then I say okay this report only, you'll see it'll ask this question. And so you can set up to always use that printer for this particular report, the project listing report. So what that is for is we have people that say they're printing forms like service request forms or repair order forms. So they take a call for a facilities problem or a road problem, and they enter a service request, and then they're still using paper forms to tell their road maintenance people where to go and what to work on and what to do. And so instead of printing it at my printer, I want to print it across the street at the shop. And of course, if I have networked access to that printer, I could choose that printer and then say always use that printer for this report if I was running, say, service request forms, and then I wouldn't have to select that. So it would know that my normal reports go to my printer and my service request forms go to the printer across the street in the shop for the maintenance people. Okay. What else is in there? I wouldn't worry about the section title field. This controls how your export works and whether it shows column titles when you export to Excel, section titles, and subtotals. And we have a different way of doing that I'm going to show you shortly. Okay, next one is an exciting one, saving report templates. Okay, this one's really cool. So I've spent over about an hour now, getting my report the way I want it. Okay, and so I've got this report. Let's see, or maybe I do a different report. I'm going to do an invoice report by project category and then project. Let's just see what happens. Lots of invoices. Okay, so I don't want to sit around for that invoice report. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to pick, I'll pick some vendors, right? So I'm going to say begin range, starting with that one and going to say that one. It doesn't like that it's saying that I might be missing some information if I don't include the invoice as one of my, the invoice number as one of my control breaks. No invoices at all, apparently. Or no invoices that reference projects, perhaps. All right, fine. So let's do vendor and then invoice number. Now I have a feeling I'll get something. Unless though I just picked a weird group. Yep, it's found some invoices, so this is working. So so let's say I'm dialing in my report. Again, I got too much stuff here. I don't like my selection criteria. Please hold. All right, so let's go to let's go to 1,000 to that one. Hopefully I'll be able to find something there. I can also hit enter to throw it up into the selection criteria I want. All right, this is better. Okay. Oh, this is exactly what I was talking about. I think I had it set to, oh no, I didn't have it set to 2 years. Never mind. Okay, so I got this report. Vendor is first, then invoice is second, invoice number second, and then it lists out the invoices. This is kind of a silly sort order, although it does show me some information about the invoice, right? But you notice that it seems like it's duplicating information because I'm sorted on the invoice, and then I have columns for the invoice as well. So I'm not sure I want that. Okay, so then I dial it in. I don't want project columns. Let's say I don't need discounts or taxable freight. I just need or sales tax, right? I just want this. I don't want cost centers, and that's good enough. Okay, so I get rid of those. I don't want to rerun the report. You saw the report took about 10 seconds. So instead, I'm going to just do that, and it goes even faster. Okay, so now this is the report I like, let's say. Okay, so now to save, moving across the top, to save this as a template, it's right there, save settings to file. It defaults to AP invoice report. I can leave it like that. It defaults to our folder area under report and criteria. Many of our clients have folders in there that they create, and they name them for their people, right? So I'm going to name mine for myself. Okay, and then I'm going to go into my own folder. Oops, click faster. Okay, and then I'm going to call it Ayren's favorite invoice report. Okay, now this is fairly new. We also, so that's the file name. We also come up and have a custom title. Okay, so I'm going to call this Ayren's Invoices, and my note is run this each Friday. Okay, now I didn't actually make it Ayren's Invoices. I could have selected on something like opened by and picked me or something like that. I could have picked a date range or something, and that would have been cool, but I didn't, so that's fine. So now I have I've saved it as a template. Now I'm going to leave this report, and I'm also going to save my, let's say I like this project listing report. I'm going to save this one too, and I'm going to put it into my Ayren folder just for fun, and the best project listing report, it defaults to that. Little note for reminder here, and then I go along my merry way. Okay, so now if I'm in that report, if I want to, I've always been able to go into my project listing report, let it come up, and then use the button next to that to restore my template. Okay, and it remembers my last 5 or so, or I can browse and go see my ones, right? And I can bring that in. But we've recently implemented a better way. So now if you go to WinCAMS, okay, and this is only for you, and you say go to saved report templates. If you've never gone here before, you'll need to hit this one time, configure saved report templates, and it will build all the report templates that are out there for you. Okay, and then I can say okay, and now forevermore in WinCAMS, when I go to saved report templates, here they are, right? I've got recently used, I've got my invoice report, oh there's Ayren's Invoices, I've got my project listing report, the best project listing. Okay, so now if I click that from WinCAMS, it runs the correct report, so it solves some of these for me, right? It chose my report because I already spent all this time choosing my report, and it customized every single bit of this for me the way I like it, right? So now you can see that my control breaks are description as I had it before. My selection criteria is some random assortment of categories like I had before, and I can just hit go and I get my 50 projects, boom. Now, in this case, I'm getting the exact same report, but if I was running this maybe in another month, maybe a few projects have been retired or a few projects have been added, or if I'm running this on a transaction like invoices, maybe there's new invoices or invoices have been deleted or whatever. You'll also notice that if you do use a report template, it shows here, so that if you want to look up how did I get to that report, you know, last year or last month, you can see what template you used. Okay, so there's a few other features in the report templates area. So if I go to WinCAMS, as I said, it's got recently used, and it divides them up. So the more templates you create, you know, it just saves you clicks, and you got them in here. If you go to configure, you can see information about them, right? So I can change the custom title. No, let's run this on Thursday instead of Friday or whatever. I can also right click and delete the report template if it's not useful anymore. Or I can, this is really crucial, I can copy them to another user. So if somebody's going to take over my job, or if I'm setting up a template and then I got a promotion, or I just want my coworker to be able to run a similar report, or my report looks really good and I just think that, and they say your report looks really good, I'd like to run the same report and just change the selection criteria to Chris entered it instead of Ayren entered it, then I can hit copy, and it allows me to select which report templates of all the ones I have. So I want my my special AP invoice report, sorry, I keep clicking twice, and my best project listing report, and then I can pick a different user ID. These are saved by user IDs. So I go to Todd Lamana, my pal in Wairika, California, and I say I want to push these to Todd's user configuration, and I say okay, and there they are. Or I can go the reverse. I can say, so now I should be able to delete this one, right? Confirm, and then I can right click and say I want to load report templates from another user. So I'm going to go to Todd Lamana, and there's the 2 report templates that I just pushed to Todd, and maybe he has some other ones too. And so I say I want that back from Todd, and so now I should let's see here, rebuild. What did I miss? I don't know. Maybe I picked the wrong one. So I can pull it back from Todd, or I can, and then I can modify it for myself, right? So you can share report layouts between users that way. Okay. Let's see, reports, where are we at here? Okay, I think that's the basics of reporting. And next I want to talk about some new features that we've added this year. That even if you're a reporting expert, these are all new. And I've talked about some of them along the way, but I'll just go through them a little bit here. So we now indicate on the cover page which report template file was used to create the report, and we actually modified that just a few days ago because we were showing the file path, and one of our users correctly said that maybe that wasn't safe, and they didn't want the file path to be publicized or something. So now we show the notes and the title that you gave to your template, okay, on the report cover page. We allow for record counts on any break level. I did a little bit of that. That's where you go into control breaks, you right click on a break, and you can say show count. Okay, so that just counts how many records were in that section of the report. This is one of my favorite ones here, date selection. Okay, so currently, let's go to something where dates make sense, like our invoice report. Let's see here, invoice report. Where is my invoice report? Let's see. Okay, so we bring up an invoice report. This is actually a slightly different one. This is only for one invoice. And let's say I don't want to do it for one invoice. Let's say I want to do it for a range of dates. Okay, So I'm gonna select on invoice date. Oh, one thing I didn't mention, the yellow fields, if you hover over them, they increase your speed. They are filtered items so that they can, if you have 100,000 records and you select on just a you know, something that's yellow like the opened by, right? And you only get certain people. So how about Melissa? Then we can filter, and your count, what we count up to, will be much smaller. Okay, so it'll make your report go much faster if you use the yellow selection items. Okay, she didn't have any invoices. Okay, but what I'm talking about now is the date. So if I click on invoice date and include, we've always been able to type in dates, you know, 07, 01, 20 through 07, 31, 20, right? We've always been able to do that, or just type in individual dates, or it was rarely used, but this lookup brought up a calendar. We've now enhanced that calendar. It kind of looks better and moves better, but it still has the multi-select, so I can select today and tomorrow and 3 dates, or I can use the begin range and all that stuff. But what I'm really excited about is we have past 30 days, past 60 days, past 90 days, current fiscal year, and the calendar year. Okay, so what's really cool is if I say I want invoices for the past 60 days. Now I'll say current fiscal year. No, I won't. Sorry, I don't want to do that because I want to be able to demonstrate. I want to say the past 90 days. Okay, and let's see. So, and I say, okay, so it puts in the past 90 days, but it also puts in past 90 here. Okay, and let's change our open by to somebody who actually opens invoices. If we can find somebody, how about maybe Rachel York? Let's see if we can get something here. Uh-oh. All right. Maybe I don't have new enough data. We'll keep trying. There we go. Okay. So so the really neat thing about this is that these dates are dynamic, right? So I've got past 90 here, and so it first of all automatically gives me the past 90 days, and I don't have to type in my date range. Okay, so I got invoices, and you'll notice that I don't have here's the invoice, right? So these are all recent invoices. Okay, and I could add a column for invoice date if I wanted. In fact, I will. Invoice date, move it up. Then I should just be able to hit this because I just added a column much faster. Now I've got a column for invoice date right there. It's really nice to have a column for everything you want, even if it looks redundant, especially when you're pushing to Excel. Okay, when you're pushing to Excel, I personally like to have every value in every line, even if it's redundant, because Excel doesn't, this looks fine to the eye because you can see that these are all under vendor 1004, so I don't need a column for vendor, but if I was pushing it to Excel, I think I would want a column for vendor so that I can sort by vendor or whatever I want to do. Okay, so now my point in all of this is now if I save my settings to file, and I call it dynamic dates, dynamic dates. Okay. Now, if I go to my WinCAMS and I go to my saved report templates, there's my dynamic dates template. And if I click on it, it brings up, so let's say I wait 3 more months and I click on it. Actually, this, I guess it's the same. So hold on, so let's just pretend I ran this on 6/21 and it went back to 3/22, let's just say. And now I save over dynamic dates. Okay, so now I ran it from 3/22 to 6/22, 3/21 to 6/20, 3/22 to 6/21. And now if I go into my saved report templates and I bring up this report, what I should see, you'll notice here that it switched it back to today, back to 4/22. So the dates are dynamic. WinCAMS knows that these are not hard dates. We want the last 90 days, period. Okay, and so that is super cool. And I'm hoping that people will try it out and let us know how it works, or if we need more options in here. But the technology's there. The engine knows how to deal with past 90, past 60, current fiscal year, current calendar year, whatever you want, right? And then it will, whatever date you actually run the report or pull it from your template, it will change those dates for you. Okay. We saw the control breaks have up and down arrows now because, well, if you've used a lot of CAMS reports, the dragging and dropping is a little bit flaky. It's hard to get a position just right. So now I can just pick the one I want and go down arrow. Okay. Okay, we now we separate the subtotal description and value to different columns in Excel. This has been an actual bone of contention a little bit. So if I've got a report that I push to Excel, you'll notice that traditionally our subtotals and our section descriptions, and I'll show you what those are in just a second. Our subtotals and our section descriptions look like this, right? So this is a section description saying I'm starting this invoice because I sorted by invoice and then vendor, as you can see. So then when I push it to Excel, it would have a single cell that had all this information in it, which some people found annoying for sorting and such like that. So now we separate those out into different cells, which some other people have found annoying. So maybe we'll modify and get some feedback on that. But actually, incidentally, this is a nice time. So we had those options in the in the report settings for the export, right? So this is a very common problem where people do not have include subtotals checked, and then they run a subtotal only report. For instance, they say summary report, right? So they run their report as a summary. And what you're going to see here is a shorter report, right, where I don't have any details. It's just subtotals, right? So all these columns now become moot, right? I can't show a division and activity because there's no subtotal. I'm not showing individual invoices necessarily. I'm just showing subtotals. Sometimes that's what you want. Depends on your audience. But then if I push to Excel, then I get, if you've ever experienced this, you're like, what's going on? Where's all my dollar amounts? Well, it's because in my settings, I was saying don't send the subtotals to Excel. And so, but then I ran the report as only subtotals, which is a summary report. Okay, so how to get around that used to be go into your report settings and say include subtotals in the export area. Now it's even easier. Right click on the Excel button and you can control whether you want the column titles, the section titles, and yes, I want to include the subtotals, and whether you want the cover page. So now if I do it again, now my subtotals are there, right? And they're showing in my my Excel. But as I said, if I'm going to be pushing to Excel and or not if I'm going to be pushing to Excel, if I'm running a summary report where I'm only showing subtotals, then having all these columns, all these are moot, right? They don't make any sense because I'm not showing individual records that can show me those columns. Okay. Many of our reports have a summary report and single line summary. So if we turn off summary report, you'll see that our report was 28 pages long, right? Which is fine. That's what I want. That's fine. It's a little bit strange to sort by invoice and then vendor, but that's fine. 28 pages long. If I go to summary report only, I get 23 pages, right? Because I'm taking out those lines for those individual invoices. I still have, because I sorted by individual invoice, I am still getting lots of too many lines. And then if I go to single line summary, which comes up with summary reports, so remember my report looks like this. Now let's see what it looks like. I was at 23 pages. I'm down to 21 pages, and I've basically cut out a line on each section, right? And what's really happening is the bottom level of the sorting, the bottom level here is not doing the drill in and the subtotal lines. It's doing the description of what it's subtotaling and the numbers on the same line. Chrissy asked, is there a way to adjust the column widths on the reports? Currently, there's not. That one got away from us. It's actually an intent that I do have to be able to go in here and specify more information about these columns. We have not done that yet, but it is on my agenda to be able to say what regardless of how big the column is, I don't care. I want to truncate it or squeeze it or something like that. Okay. And I have some other ideas for columns, for some column options as well, but currently no. Okay, we talked about pushing and pulling from other users' saved report templates. I just showed you adding the Excel export options as right-click options. We now have the option to export the cover page so that you can see at the top of your Excel what you were running when you ran it, what your selection criteria was. This is a minor one, but we now can toggle and hide the sample report, right? So it's a button now instead of showing this big window for the sample report. So it just allows you to see more of your fields here, your available fields. So if I click View Sample Report, then it pops up instead of being there all the time. And I made the font larger in the selection criteria box. So right here, this font was much smaller before, and we expanded it. Okay, look at that. It's only 11:32. If you have any further questions, you can put them into the chat or you can email me directly. Let's see, I'm trying to think of any other things that I might do in reports. Well, I didn't do any, well, actually, I can talk a little bit more about the different kinds of reports, okay? So a really common report is like is where people want reports on the transactions, right? So I'm going to do a resource usage report. Who knows what a resource usage report is? This is where I encourage people to just try it. You can't harm anything. If it takes too long, you can make it, narrow down your selection criteria. Oh, okay, so it's saying it can do labor and equipment or materials or both. So I'll pick labor and equipment. It's doing it by employee/crew and then division and activity. I think I'll pick a date. This is 1920, and this is a California site, so it's going to start on July of 2019 and go through, let's say, July 10th of 2019, and then let's just see what it looks like. And so it's saying it was able to narrow down to 1,434 time cards that fit that date range. And now it's going to find the ones that fit that, well, we already know they fit that date range, but that have a division and activity and employee or a crew, which is pretty much all of them, of course. So with a transaction report, you can get much more detailed with your control breaks and things like that. So let's see what this report shows us. Okay, so I selected this date. So okay, so this is a crew, because they enter their time cards by crew, and then they say, and then there's an activity code with division. So the division, they have a division called road department, and then here's admin time taken, right? And then here's the individual employee numbers. Okay. So maybe I say, okay, I don't want it by crew. Instead, I want it, and I realize now that I don't want other divisions, right? So maybe I go into selection criteria and I can pick division. How about only the road department? So there was a question in the resource usage report for a specific material code. Let's see here. Yeah, so if you click material, then I would expect that my lookup would say, do I want, oh, interesting, it doesn't even, it doesn't want to go to, oh, so it's only going to roads and miscellaneous. Interesting. Who knew? I don't know why it doesn't go to shopped materials. But when I pick roads and materials inventory, then I can select a specific material code. So they've got, so if I want chips in location 2P, I can do that. If I want to pick other chips, I can say find chips over and over, right? And keep picking them. Get all my chips. And if we needed to, we also can sometimes, we add, if you find that you need to use it, you can ask us and we'll add like a selection on just the item number or just on the location, right? Nobody's ever asked us for that before. So it's important for us to know how you're using it, okay? So I picked a division. What else do I want to know? Okay, I don't really like that it's by crew. I want this by employee. Okay, so I would like this to be, so I go to my control breaks and I'm going to do it by employee number and get rid of crew. And the other thing I don't like, just personally, is I don't like seeing the division and then the activity code on two lines like that. So, oh, this is something we didn't talk about in control breaks. I can roll up a control break, right? So you see how it's drilling in currently with division and then activity on two lines. It's 29 pages. So if I roll those up and then I run my report, well, it's going to be shorter anyway because I picked the road division anyway. But I shouldn't get 29 pages now. I wouldn't expect. And by the way, if a report takes a few seconds or a few minutes, you don't have to sit there and watch it. You can certainly go to, you can run multiple reports at the same time, go do something else. Okay, so now, interesting. How did I get more pages? What did I do differently? Oh, I know why. Because I sorted by employee, and there's a lot more employees than crews, right? So I actually, I kind of did conflicting things here. I was sorting by crew number, and so now I have lots more employees, right, than crews. So let's just make this tighter. Okay, so then I just go through the things that my selections that I want. Does this show me what I want? Oh, or maybe I would rather have it by date and then employee, right? Okay, and maybe I don't need materials since I'm not even showing, since I didn't even select materials. So let's start cleaning up our columns, right? So I don't need a material charge. Maybe I don't care what equipment they used right now, and maybe I don't care about these charges. I just want the total charge, right? So I do that, and I can run the report again. Oops, I don't want to do it that way. What did I do wrong here? It's not doing my selection correctly. There we go. All right, so this might be more like what I want to see here, right? Maybe I don't want the activity and the division to be repeated in the line because I already have them here, right? And you can see here I've got 57 pages, right? So I can, and maybe if I'm trying to tighten that up, the reason I need to think about how I'm showing this, right? Do I need to show every day that the person worked, right? Maybe I don't need to show every day that the person worked. That makes perfect sense. So, or maybe I do need to show every day, but I don't need to show it person by person. So maybe I want the date higher than the person, right? Or maybe I just need I don't need to sort by activity code since I have the activity code in that, in each line. So I can go, or maybe I just don't want to see the details. So I can go here and say summary report, use this, much faster. Now I'm seeing, I'm not showing every date within each line, right? Now maybe I say, you know what, I don't really need it broken down by activity code, that's fine. So I can go here and get rid of that. And so what I'm really saying is I want a report sorted by employee number that shows me these columns and is only for July 1st to July 4th. Okay, I will, if you're using this report, see, there's so many, Pierce County just asked for, to be able to sort by item number, which I can certainly add. And it's in some other reports, but we can add it to this report very easily, okay? So let's see, so I took out so I was at 39 pages and I took out that other control break. And it's fine to have a long report, but if I just think about my audience. Sometimes you can have things that are 25 pages and you just keep narrowing them down to what are you actually trying to show. So now I've got 10 pages, right? Then I say, okay, wait a minute. It shows the employee number, then it's got this dashed line and it's got the numbers and then it's got this 1088 subtotal. I don't like that. I'm gonna do a single line subtotals. Ooh, that's getting much nicer, right? And now maybe I say, okay, since I'm just showing totals, so I don't want to see the date, the division, the employee numbers over there, the activity. I just want things that subtotal. Much nicer. And I push that to Excel. And that's something I can work with, okay? Now, sometimes you do want to see all the detail, and I totally understand that. But I always think, well, who's my audience? If it's for the board or for the public works director, they probably don't want to know every single day of everything they did. But a lot of times you start with something like this, and then you say, well, why is this person 32? Well, because then maybe we go run a detailed report for that person. If the original entry for labor was entered using a crew, if you run a report employee specific, will any time from the crew entry be captured in an employee specific report? So yes, okay, so it's a little bit confusing, but in our time cards, there is in the daily time cards, there's an employee or crew at the top, and then every line of the time card has a specific employee on it. Okay, but when I pick this employee number, that's what I'm talking about, lines. Now, if I pick employee/crew, then I'm talking about the upper one, right? And so if I picked employee/crew, I would not here, here, if I selected employee/crew, then I selected on an employee number 123, then if that employee's time cards were entered using crews at the top, I would not expect them to show. So that's the difference between employee, that's every single hour, and employee/crew is that field at the top. So you should be able to, you should never have to run 2 reports. Okay, that's 11:45. Don't be shy about asking. Send me emails, ayren@cascadegovsoftware.com or support@cascadegovsoftware.com, asking follow-up questions, or if you want a copy of this, I guess, maybe I'll send this out, just my little agenda of what we talked about. And I recorded this, and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel called the WinCAMS channel. I actually already had a pretty lengthy reporting video that had to be broken into 2 parts on the WinCAMS channel on YouTube. We'll also be posting this webinar on our website, and have fun with reports, and let me know how it goes and what you run into. Thanks for coming, everybody.